So the last topic on policing right now is among the more sort of interesting and controversial areas, and that is the procedural law that guides policing. So, like other criminal justice agency, police are guided by a body of law that tells them what they can and cannot do in regards to their duty as law enforcement officers. Um, Three big areas with respect to police are use of force, search and seizure, and Miranda rights. So we're going to talk about those. Uh, First thing to recognize is that coercive force is part of policing. That their ability to legally use force underlies everything they do as a part of their job, and it's kind of one of those things that's seldom used but always there. Um, my old professors had a lecture that was noteworthy about. I can't even remember how it said. Why do you pay your taxes? What happens if you don't pay your taxes? And it kind of goes on and on. And the end of the story, and as big you see, was that the police can ultimately kill you for not paying your taxes. You barricade yourself in your house and so on and so forth. So in that respect, there's a bunch of questions. So when can police legally use that force? How much force is necessary? And then issues of wrongful force and disproportionate force. And so a good way to discuss those is in regards to the Duluth police detox video. So if you haven't watched that yet, you might want to pause and watch that. It's an incident that happened in Duluth several years ago now. And so if you watch the incident, one of the things that strikes me is that it all starts because the intake officer, out of no ill will, there's a guy that she has to take his jacket because he can't have it on the ward. And he says, well, what if I throw it at you? And her response was, yeah, go ahead, do it and see what happens. Um, that's how it kicks off. And so it's important if you're working in this area, one of the things to keep in mind is that most agencies want people that de-escalate situations and calm things down instead of a sort of sarcastic response that can amp up a situation. Um, the other thing, and I've shown this in a number of face-to-face classes, and people point out, and they're like aghast at the second officer. She didn't do anything. And again, if you watch it closely, she tries to de-escalate. She tries to get the guy's attention. And at the point the force starts, I don't know, what she can do at that point. Um, so, in terms of when police can use force, if you go back and think about coercive force being part of policing, police have a right to get you to do what they want to do as long as it's within the scope of their job. And so, was force warranted? Yeah, he asked for the jacket. He's trying to get this guy to comply. The guy wasn't complying. He's being a bit combative. So absolutely, the police officer had a right to use force in that situation. The issue is the amount of force used. Um, and police are guided by this sort of use of force continuum that they are to escalate force as it pertains to that situation. They need enough force to get done what they're trying to get done. Um, and so most people that watch that video come away with the impression that there was too much force used, that he went beyond subduing the guy and getting the jacket, controlling the situation to the point where he was throwing haymakers, what looks like out of anger rather than in an attempt to get his job done. Um, the last question with this is at what point, if police do use too much force, does it become an assault? And so the officer in this case was charged with assault, went to trial, and the jury found the person not guilty. So he was fired from the police force, but not found guilty of any crimes. Right now, what we're really sort of grappling with as a society is police deadly use of force. Um, and the controlling case is in the U.S. Supreme Court is still Tennessee versus Garner. And what they decided there, it used to be legal to shoot what was called a fleeing felon. So if you're a police officer and you have reason to believe somebody's committed a felon and they're fleeing, it used to be legal for them to shoot at that person. And in '85, the Supreme Court essentially said you can no longer do that. Um, and they laid out kind of guidelines in this case and other cases as to when legal force can be used. And basically, police can shoot somebody if their life is in danger or if they believe that person is going to put other people's lives in danger. And so if they're fleeing with a gun and the police think they might shoot at somebody in the public, they have a right to use deadly force. If they feel their own life is in danger, they have a right to use deadly force. And so what we've had is a series of incidents. It's hard to even keep track of all of them now, where through body cams or dash cams or phone videos, the video has been captured of police shooting people, and then the debate starts. Was this a legal shooting? So we're on here, and if you are queasy at all about watching a video of police shooting somebody, you might want to fast forward through this part. It's going to work. Oh, there we go. This is one that happened in North Carolina. And this is a kind of classic example of a fleeing felon. The guy was a felon. I think he got pulled over. He was nervous about his child support, if I remember right. If he had a warrant out for failure to pay, I can't remember. But the guy takes off, and police officer shoots him as he's running away. And then what looks like happens is he goes and drops the stun gun next to the guy, because in the police report he put that the guy was struggling with the stun gun, and that's why he shot him. So I think most reasonable people that watch this come away with a very different perspective.
Oh shit. Shit. Oh shit. Fucking abuse. Fucking
So
abuse, man.
you can get the sense of the big issue that people are grappling with is that for a long time all we ever had to go on was a police report. And police tend to back each other as part of the job, and so you'd have these people claiming that one thing happened, but that the police report would say something completely different. The other thing, and somebody pointed this out, is that of course the media now, once a police shooting generates a certain amount of media attention and public anger and reaction, that media sources are going to continue to find every other single incident like that and play them up, and they do that for everything. And so part of the debate is it that this is just the media kind of picking up on the ones that are out there, or is it that this has always happened at a pretty regular pace, but that the new media we have with new technology, with phones and social media and everything else, has sort of shined the light on what was always there. So that was an example. The North Carolina one that was obviously illegal. That officer was charged with homicide. I don't honestly know where that case stands. In terms of what we know about police shootings, it turns out we really don't know much. That's the Daily Show. The Daily Show data trouble with police shootings. It's a separate file on the Blue site if you want to watch it. Basically, the police are supposed to have kept track of how many killings happened and turn it over to the Justice Department. It should be in the justifiable homicide part of the UCR data. And it turns out few police organizations do that. What started now is that media have started keeping track on their own. So obviously, if police shoot somebody, it shows up in the newspaper somewhere, and so media sources are sort of trolling the newspaper to try to get their head around how much of this is happening. And right now, the reports that the media have are more than twice as much as the ones that are actually reported in the UCR data. So I suspect, given where we are right now, that might change as well. That the Justice Department, FBI, somebody's going to sort of crack down on how police report shootings. All right. So aside from use of force, one of the other big areas is search and seizure law. I've actually done some a long time ago now, but did some sort of work. I had a friend that was a lawyer, and we did papers on automobile searches, and particularly the Ohio v. Robinette case. And so the general rule for search and seizure is that in order to search people, houses, police generally need a warrant. Having said that, there are a fair number of exceptions. So if police are going to arrest you, place you under arrest, they have a right to pat you down and search you to make sure you don't have any weapons to harm you or to harm yourself or to harm the police. Stop and frisk is sort of a brief, and that's one generally a lot of controversy in New York City, but same thing, police are going to talk to you, they have a right to kind of pat you down quickly, and regardless of whether it's a search incident to arrest or it's a stop and frisk, if they find anything illegal, they can use it in a court of law. Automobile searches has its own sort of case law as well. Automobile searches revolve around this issue of custodial detention and when it ends. So when they pull you over and they take your driver's license, the detention starts. And savvy police officers, and that was the case in the Ohio v. Robinette, the guy was the state leader in drug seizures. And what he would do is he would sit at construction zones and he would pull people for going over 5 miles an hour over. And had no intention of writing him a ticket, testified in court, wasn't going to write the tickets. All he was doing was trolling for drugs. And so he would ask everybody to search their car. But he would do it in this kind of sneaky, he would give them back their driver's license and say, I'm just going to give you a warning. And as people were walking away, he would say, hey, by the way, you mind if I search your car? And the rules change if it's somebody's in detention under custody or not. And technically, when he had the driver's license back and they were walking away, that custodial detention had ended. The issue was, do reasonable people, as they're walking away, feel like they can say, screw you, Johnny Law, and take off in their car? I think most people would feel that they're still under detention if the lights are still going behind them and they're walking away and the police officer speaks to you. The court found otherwise. The court ruled that what he did was legal, that the detention had ended, and that he could sort of use the language that he used. The other thing, obviously, is that there's consent, and the police officers are a bit like vampires. That once you consent to having them searched, you can't kick them out. So if you let them in your house, if you let them in your car, you can't change your mind at the last second. And obviously, if police see something in plain view, they knock at your door or your automobile, and there's a bloody knife or there's weed smoke rolling out of your car window, that gives them probable cause to search further without a warrant. So, as with other things, there's this whole body of law, procedural law, that kind of guides what police can and cannot do with respect to searching yourself or your property. And that leads to the issue of what happens if they violate these rules. And what the courts basically decided, the Weeks case was for the federal government. The Matt versus Ohio applied the earlier ruling to the states. But the Supreme Court just basically made up a law that says if the search was unconstitutional, that any evidence gets tossed out. And this has become a staple of media police. So if you watch any Law and Order episode, my wife and I always take a bet on what's going to get thrown out. You know, we have a contest to see who can pick out the little piece of evidence that's going to get thrown out by the court. And it does happen. Primarily, it happens in drug cases because it's my example earlier, right? The police use more and more aggressive techniques to try to find drugs, and so they're always trying to kind of walk that line and push the envelope. And so most of the cases about exclusionary evidence comes from drug cases. So again, if it's unconstitutional search, then the courts are supposed to throw out the evidence. The Fifth Amendment focuses on confessions and what are legally obtained confessions. And what flows from that, again, the Miranda rights aren't, Miranda is named after a defendant in a famous legal case. I think it was Miranda v. Arizona, if my memory serves. So the Miranda rights that came from that case, everybody's heard if they watch TV, if they've seen any police procedural, that you better remain silent. If you choose not to remain silent, anything you say can and will be used against you in law of court. You have the right to attorney, blah, blah, blah. And so whether those Miranda rights are necessary, again, goes back to whether you're in custody and what you're in police custody for. In Minnesota, fairly progressive state, we have a law that all waivers must be recorded, which, again, it's a good idea. It protects the police, it protects the citizens. All right, so that's it for procedural law, and that's it for policing. So I'm curious to see sort of how people digested the detox video, especially on Moodle. So chime in and on the forum, or if you want to chime in about any other sort of police use of force issues that are bubbling around right now. It's sort of interesting times for that area of law.